We have a player that moves. That's great, but it's not a game yet. In this video, we're going to start spawning falling objects. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how games track objects over time. This is where our game state really starts to matter. So most games don't deal with one object, they're going to deal with collections of objects. Enemies, bullets, power-ups, obstacles. The way we manage those is with arrays. An array is just a list of things the game is responsible for. And today, falling objects are our first real game state. Let's start by creating a function that'll spawn a falling object. This function will create a game object, position it at the top of our screen, and then give it a falling speed. We're going to separate this into a function because spawning is something we'll want to do repeatedly. So at the bottom of our game scene, let's add a new method. We're going to call this spawn falling object. So in this method, we'll want to create one of our falling objects. So we come to our create method, let's copy our code where we created one of our objects. So we'll copy this, we're going to paste that down here. Now we need to update our x and y value. For our x value, we'll want this to be a random number between 0 and how big our game is. We'll add some padding to keep our object within our scene. To generate that random number, we can use some of our built-in phaser utilities. So we're going to do phaser.math, rnd for random, and now we want to do between. This allows us to specify a min and max value, and then phaser is going to return a random number between those two values. So we're going to do 50, and now we'll reference our scale.width, and we'll subtract 50. So now for our y value, let's just set this to be 0. We'll save. We'll come back up to our create method. Let's replace our line of code here with a call to our function. So now if we save and refresh our game, we should see we're spawning our object in a different location. So now when we spawn one of our objects, we'll want to choose one of our random frames from our sprite sheet. For that, we'll need a way to get a list of all of our possible frame names and choose one of those randomly. To do that, let's add a new property to our class. We're going to call this falling object frames. We'll come down to our create method. Now to get our frames, we need to grab our texture from phaser. To do that, let's do a console log. We're going to do this.textures to reference our textures manager. We'll use our get method to get a texture. And now we want to grab our texture that is tied to our sprite sheet, which is our asset keys.object. So now if we save over in our developer console, we'll see we're logging out our texture object. So this object has a property called frames, and this is an object with all of our frames from our sprite sheet, as well as a base frame that phaser creates. So we'll want to take this object and convert this into an array and subtract out our base frame here. Let's reference our falling objects frames property. We're going to set it equal to object.keys. Object.keys allows us to grab the keys from an object and then create an array from it. So now we'll want to do our this.textures.get our object keys.frames, and now we want to filter it. So we want to filter our array, and we want to filter where our name does not equal __ base. So now if we update our console log, we'll log out our falling object frames, and now we have an array with all of our frame names. Nice. So now what we can do is down in our method, we can choose one of those random frames. For that, we'll use our built-in phaser utilities. We're going to do const, we're going to do random frame will be equal to our phaser utils. We're going to do our array, we'll do get random. So now we can pass in our array, and that'll give us a random frame. So then down here, we can replace our hard-coded frame with our random frame. So one thing we'll need to do is we need to move our logic for create our collectible object below where we get our falling object frames. If we save and come back to our browser and we refresh, we should start seeing different objects getting spawned in our game. Now here's the important part. We need to remember every falling object that we create. To do that, we need to store them in an array. That array is going to be our game state, and if that object is in the array, we know it exists in our game, and once it's removed from our array, it'll no longer matter to us. So to keep track of our objects, we'll add a new property. We're going to call this falling objects. Down in our create method, we'll initialize our array. Turn to our falling objects will be equal to an empty array. Now down in our method, we'll store a reference to our object, and now we add that object to our array. One last thing we'll do is I'm going to console log, and we're going to log out how big our array is. So we'll do our falling objects, and we'll do our length. And now we just need a way to spawn our objects over time. For that, we'll use our phaser time events. How this works is we can tell phaser to spawn our object after a certain amount of time has passed in our game, and we can have this loop so then that way we're repeatedly creating our objects. To do that, we'll do this.time, we'll do add event. Now inside this method, we need to specify an object with the details of our timer event. Our first property is called delay, so this is how long we want to wait before we invoke our code. Next is callback, and this is going to be the function that we want to invoke after this delay has passed. So we're going to reference our spawn falling object method on our class. Next, we're going to specify our callback scope. Because this method is on our class, we'll pass in this to reference this class. Our last property is going to be loop, and we'll set equal to true. So what this will do is this is going to tell phaser to wait 1 second. After a second has passed, we want to invoke our function, and then we want this to repeat indefinitely, so we set loop to be true. So now over in our browser, we're going to start seeing a bunch of game objects starting to spawn, and we'll see our array is constantly growing in size. Nice. Now that we're spawning our objects, we just need to have them fall down our screen. For that, this will be just like our player. We'll want to update one of our properties on our game object in our update method. Instead of updating our X, we're going to update our Y value to have our game object move down our screen. So just like our player, we'll want to have a speed for our falling objects. So let's add a new property to our class. We'll call this falling object speed. So now in our init method, we'll set our falling object speed equal to 200. So then down in our update method, after the logic for our player, we'll want to loop through our array. So we're going to do for, we'll do let I equal our falling object's length. We'll subtract 1. And now if I is greater than or equal to 0, we'll decrement I. And now inside our loop, we'll get a reference to our object. And now we want to update our Y value. So we'll do our object.y, we'll do plus equals our falling object speed times our delta, and we'll divide by 1,000. So just like what we did for our player. So now if we save, as we spawn our objects, they'll start falling down our screen. Now, we just need to add in logic to clean up our game objects once they disappear off our screen. So right now our array keeps growing indefinitely, and eventually this will become a problem. And so one optimization we can do is we can clean up those objects. To do that, we just want to check our Y value, and if that Y value is greater than the height of our game, we can remove that game object. So if we do our object.y, if it's greater than the height of our game, then we want to destroy that game object, and then we want to remove it from our array. So destroy, this method tells phaser that we're all done with this game object, and it can clean it up and remove it from our game. This will tell our browser to garbage collect that object, and then it keeps our game running smoothly. So now we'll see we're spawning our objects consistently. We'll see our array size seems to cap out at 4, and now we're not growing indefinitely. So one important thing we did here is we iterated over our array backwards. We did that so we could remove our objects in place so we didn't have to iterate over our array a second time. Finally, one last change we'll do for our game is we're going to update our jar to appear in front of our game objects. So right now when we spawn our falling objects, they're appearing in front of our player. By default, when we draw game objects to our scene, they're going to be drawn in the order that they're created. Because we create our player first, it's always drawn behind our other game objects. If we want our player to appear in front of those game objects, we can update a property called depth on our game object. How this works is that property will tell phaser that we want to render that game object at a higher level than our other game objects. By default, all game objects have the same depth of 0, and so by setting our player equal to 1, now our game object appears in front of those game objects. And so this is really useful for when you want to do things like UI, and you always want that to appear on top of everything else. Now we have movement and we have falling objects. In our next video, we'll make them interact. We'll detect collisions manually using math. No physics engine yet, because if you understand collision at this level, everything else becomes easier.